Who wants to do the? Well, you're doing the introductions.
Yeah, that's still 15 minutes away. So I don't know. Do you want to try?
So do you want to
try GV8MAN and see if you can?
I've got. Oh, did you want to speak with people at Binbrook?
Binbrook
at this point, or after our anytime?
Anytime. Anytime. You can get them when you can, sort of thing.
Well, that was my thinking, just in case something goes pear-shaped afterwards, if we can get them now.
Yeah, destroy.
Yeah. Then,
actually, I don't need them, do I?
yeah.
Yeah, being filmed as well.
I'm doing films as well.
It's all official.
That's very impressive.
It is, isn't it?
Look at the mic and
No wonder people have speaking envy when they start their amateur career.
This is Victor Kilo 80 My Golf in November, calling Golf Bravo 8 My Golf in November. If they're there, over.
It's all happening. Yeah,
this is Golf Bravo 8, Mike Alpha November. You've got operator this side is Mark. Is this for Judith to send some messages over to the former area Binbrook QSL?
Yes, QSL. I'll put Judith on just now, if that's okay. So you can push the button if you like, or I can push the button for you.
Yeah, brilliant stuff. I'll stand by. I'm going to pass the radio over to, we've got Cormac and Sarah here who are going to send some messages over to Judith, so we'll be standing by.
Mama. Ready when you are.
So now both ends are deciding who.
Yeah, good morning, Judith. Operator this end is Mark, and that's Mike Alpha Romeo Charlie. I'm going to pass the radio over firstly to Cormac, who can make contact with you and have a quick chat with you. Well, I'll say good afternoon to you. It's good morning over here in the UK, but I'll pass it over to Cormac so you can make a quick contact with you, Julie.
Awesome. Oh, hello. It's very pleasing for me to hear you, and I'm looking forward to talking to some of the people from Binbrook. Over.
Excellent. Good stuff.
Well, good morning from us here, Judith. This is Cormac from RS Binbrook. How are you doing?
Well, it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, so I'm doing very well. But thank you very much for getting up so early to speak to us today.
That's no problem. It's good to hear from you, and what a great weekend we've had here. We've been running the station since Wednesday, had some great contacts, and we even had a joint venture with the local car club with some lovely cars, and yeah, it's great to hear you from all the way over there.
I'd just like to let you know that yesterday I met a gentleman who is now 85, who as a 5-year-old remembers Operation Manna, and he remembers seeing the aircraft flying very low over the land and dropping the food parcels. It was very exciting to meet someone that's actually been there and experienced this wonderful humanitarian gesture. Over.
Wow, that's amazing. We had a great opportunity. I had a great chance to speak to a lot of people and talk about Doug now that we have a lovely vinyl sticker of his picture at the guard room with his PFC above it. So it's a great talking point and a great opportunity to share your dad's story and talk about the actual snifter print as well.
I'd just like to pass on a message to Trevor. When Trevor visited the museum a couple of years ago, when he came out to speak to my dad and meet my dad, he left a wreath at the ladder leading into the Lancaster, and I'd like him to know that it's still here, and I've taken a photo of it, and I'll send Sarah the photo just to prove that he is not forgotten.
It's so good, right? Yeah.
Okay, you should have been so. Can I speak to them?
No one's saying anything at the moment, so they're probably gathering their. Oh, there we go.
Judith, are you still receiving us here?
Yes, we are.
Get the glasses out, see what's going on.
Oh, brilliant. I'm going to pass you over to Sarah, who obviously you know, and she's got a few bits and pieces to say to you as well.
Awesome.
I'm really looking forward to hearing Sarah's voice. Over.
Okay, we'll make a radio operator out of you yet.
Hello, Judith. How are you?
I'm very well, and it's lovely to hear you. And thank you so much for all the information you've been sending me over the last few months about this wonderful event. Over.
Oh, it's been a pleasure, and it's such a pleasure to share this such a momentous occasion with you all and to hear about that gentleman who remembered the drops. Just incredible. And so we were just really lovely to hear about it.
That's the worst bit. You get on the air and you can't figure what to say.
I'm just wondering how your catering is getting on. Over.
Oops. Oh, that's right.
We had a lovely time yesterday, and we opened the burger van, and so we served drinks and burgers and hot dogs, and then we had an event in HQ last night, and the guys who have done a great job running the radio, they came along, and we've just had a really lovely celebration of what's been happening over the last, with them all.
I'm sure it was very successful, Sarah, knowing your organisation. And has Trevor been present, or is he travelling again? Over. Trevor was there.
Trevor has been present. He sends his love and best wishes to you and your family. And yeah, he's all good, and he's really enjoyed the weekend and being here with everyone.
Can we finish it?
If you like, yeah.
Thank you, Sarah, and all the best to everyone at Binbrook. And I look forward to coming and seeing you again in the not too distant future. Over and out.
Beautiful. Well done. Excellent.
Okay.
There you go.
I hope you're still there, Judith, and I hope you've had a really good celebration. I've really enjoyed the photos that you've been sending as well. We especially love the one of seeing Binbrook on Anzac Day in 1945.
The gentleman that sent me those things about the Anzac Day 1945 is here with us today, so he's heard how much you appreciate that. Over.
Yeah, just get that's it.
Oh, please do thank him for them, and I'm sure they will be used, and tell him we are in the process of looking to set up the museum, and I'm sure these things will all be so valuable in that.
Excellent.
I'm sure he'll appreciate hearing that it's going to be of some value to you. Anyway, we have some official duties to perform now, so we'll leave you now, and all the best, and God bless. Over.
Excellent.
Set up with starting behind station headquarters.
Yes. So she started transmitting while you were transmitting, so that's right.
Okay. Do I need to say anything else? No. Okay. All right.
Thank you so much.
Okay, that was wonderful. Thank you.
GB8 Mike Alpha November. This is Victor Kilo 80 Mike Alpha November. We'll go off air for a little bit for presentations and things, but we'll hope to catch you up in maybe a half an hour or an hour or so, if that's okay.
Golf Bravo 8 Mike Alpha November. Yeah, brilliant stuff. Thanks for the contact there. Amazing job at both ends, and hopefully we can catch you again in half an hour to an hour. We'll go back to Manna. 7-3, thank you very much from myself and the team up at RAF Bimbro.
Excellent. Okay, what time have we got? 5 minutes. So it's up to you whether we start now or we get it to 5 minutes. I think we've got everyone's here.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Golf Bravo 80 Mike Alpha November is monitoring.
Might turn that down a bit. Yeah.
I just turned the volume down on the top of the rig.
On the rig itself. Well, that's easy. I think I can manage that.
Yeah.
Oops, actually turn it off. Right. Okay. Yes, it's 2 pages, but it's in a big font so I can read it, don't worry. Right. Okay. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to welcome you to the West Australian Radio Command Centre, part of a coordinated international effort by amateur radio operators around the world to commemorate the 80th anniversary of Operations Manna and Chowhound. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge that we meet today on Whadjuk country. Even though I'm an outsider, I have been privileged to be welcomed onto these lands by elders of the Noongar Nation. I pay my respects to those elders, their ancestors, and the emerging elders who will carry their culture and traditions into the future. And I'd ask you to do the same. My name's Dave Emmerich, Callsign Victor Kilo 6 Kilo Victor, and I'm here today as the president of the WA VHF Group, Amateur Radio Club. And I have now the honour of introducing our distinguished guests. Please welcome the Honourable Dr. Krishnan, MLA, representing the Office of Premier. Where are we? Councillor Glenys Barber from the City of Melville, thank you. Do we have someone from the Bull Creek Museum? Or they're just hovering around? No, that's okay. And of course our Manna special guests, Judith Arrowsmith, daughter of Doug Arrowsmith, Lancaster pilot. Members of the Dutch Club, I think we have at least one, of Western Australia, and people representing the 460 Squadron Association in Perth. So, as I mentioned, we commemorate today the 80th anniversary of Operations Manna and Chowhound, which were conducted during the last 10 days of conflict in World War II, starting in late April and finishing in early May of 1945. The European winter of 1944 and 45 was very harsh, such that in the Netherlands, many of the canals and rivers normally used to transport farm produce were frozen over. Food and fuel needed for heating were largely commandeered by the occupying forces in the Netherlands, leaving precious little for the approximately 4.5 million Dutch civilians who were affected by the cold and the lack of food. Prior to these humanitarian missions, approximately 20,000 people had died from these causes, including many children, the infirm and the elderly, of course, those least able to fend for themselves. And finally, the German army had broken barriers and dikes in order to flood 250,000 hectares of land, ostensibly to frustrate the movements of the Allied land forces, but of course most of that was previously productive farmland. And even once the floodwaters had receded, took over 5 years to restore that land. So there was a very desperate need, and the Dutch royal family pleaded with the Allies to provide relief. With permission from Churchill and Roosevelt, Allied Supreme Commander Eisenhower led tense negotiations for safe air corridors, and fragile anti-aircraft ceasefire promises were obtained. And thus was born Operations Manna, which was the UK name, and Chowhound, the American name. These missions were flown by Avro Lancaster bombers from the UK and B-17 Flying Fortresses from America, and they flew from Allied airfields in England to drop vital food and humanitarian supplies into the occupied areas in the west of the Netherlands. Air crews came from the British Royal Air Force, the Royal Australian Air Force, the Royal New Zealand Air Force, Royal Canadian Air Force, US Army and Air Force, and Poland. so it was quite a well-crewed arrangement. In about a dozen days and over 5,000 sorties flown, a total of 11,000 tonnes of food were delivered, saving thousands of lives. These aircraft were heavily modified before the start of the mission, losing most of their armaments and other components to make as much space and weight capacity to carry as much food as possible. They also flew with about half their normal crew size. Not much point sending 5 gunners if you don't have guns. The other thing that was drastically different was the flight profiles. Bombing operations flew very high and very fast in order to avoid aircraft defences. The Manna missions apparently scraped church steeples at just above stalling speed because, of course, there's no point delivering food if you're going to flatten it all out and destroy it when it lands. They also had to fly over live manned aircraft batteries, anti-aircraft batteries, and they could count the individual soldiers and watch the gun barrels truck them as they flew into the Netherlands. Pretty scary. There is a close connection between amateur radio operations and many of the actions during, in fact, both World Wars. At the commencement of World War I and II, many countries suspended their amateur radio service, and in fact several also confiscated equipment for national security reasons. Consequently, as a result, potentially many Australian and other allied amateur operators ended up becoming signalmen in the Navy or the Army or the Air Force, or radar operators or intelligence personnel during World War II, many of them paying the ultimate price in the defence of the freedoms that we enjoy today. In fact, amateurs in Australia and New Zealand hold an annual 24-hour Remembrance Day event later in the year as a memorial for those amateurs lost in military conflict. Especially with the somewhat fragile state of international politics today, we should never forget the sacrifices these amateurs made, nor those of all the other servicemen and women who fought in these terrible conflicts. I think history shows us that war is never the solution, and I hope we can collectively remember that, especially in this weekend. Other amateur groups here and in the Netherlands, the UK, USA, Canada and Poland have been making radio contacts over the last few days, just like the one we had a few moments ago, in celebration of this anniversary, and will continue doing this into May. In a short while, we will again make a contact with RAF Binbrook in the United Kingdom, where 460 Squadron was based. I'd like to take a moment now to acknowledge the Herculean, or should I call that Lancastrian, effort of my Vice President Robert, hiding over in the background, Callsign VK6 Whiskey Hotel Oscar, for arranging the Australian component of this anniversary celebration. While the event itself kicked off only a few days ago, Robert and Dennis started working on this almost a year ago. So it's been a huge effort getting it to work. Several other members of our club and other amateur radio operators and clubs in Australia have come on board to assist, including the Peel Amateur Radio Group. We set up a station in Kings Park on Anzac Day. The West Australian Repeater Group is supporting all of our communications today, and operators in South Australia and Victoria. Thank you also to everyone who put in an effort here. I would also like to thank the Bull Creek Aviation Heritage Museum staff and volunteers for their support in hosting this event, in particular Museum Manager Trent Norris and volunteer Bernie Oliver. So in closing, I would again like to thank all of you for coming today to help us celebrate this anniversary event. And I would invite our honoured guests to come and say a few words if they wish. Over to you, Dr. Krishnan. Just out of the way. If you just stand in front of where all the microphones are. Or you can sit if you like.
Thanks, Dave.
You're welcome.
Thank you, everybody. It's an honor and privilege to be here. Thanks, Judith, for being here. It's a special event. Honestly, I was supposed to have received speech notes from the Premier, but that didn't happen, unfortunately. It happens many times because they simply say it's Jags, he'll manage it. So, what a commemoration. Just thinking back, I would just like to make only 2 points. The crew and the people who've been in the war all the time doing something which they don't like, because none of us like war or none of us like causing damage to anyone. They doing an act of dropping food is a special sense for them, where it would have definitely helped them heal from whatever they have felt. So that's something which just touches the heart when you think about it. This process was helping people who were starving and help people heal from whatever they've been through for years. The second thing, in my culture, my father, my grandfather has always told me the biggest service you could do in your life is feed someone. It's because if you give anyone anything in this world, always the hand goes this way because they want more and more. It's only when you feed someone enough, the hand goes the other way, saying enough, and that's when they bless you. And that service has been provided with such historic thing, and this commemoration really reminds us how important it is to look after people. As Dave said, none of us want war, and hopefully we should all pray and hope for peace around the globe. Thank you for having me, and I will carry this memory for the rest of my life. Thank you once again.
Thank you. Yes. Yep.
Thanks, everyone. On behalf of the City of Melville, it's a privilege to be here today. My dad was in the RAAF, so he'd be chuffed that I'm here. I'd like to acknowledge Jeanette and your father for the wonderful work he did. And on behalf of the city, I'd like to welcome the Dutch people here today. We've got a nice affiliation with our Dutch in our city. I'd certainly like to thank Bernie and Trent from the Heritage Museum for the wonderful work you do, and for our community, for our City of Melville. This is just such a great example of community and the history that you provide. Thank you very much. And of course to our friends at the VHS up at Wireless Hill for everything you do. Bernie? No, I've got the name. Robert. And Dennis.
Yep.
And Dave. Thank you so much for organising this event today. It's taken a lot of time, but it's well worth it, and to have this global connection. And thank you for everything you do for us and our community. So thanks, and thanks for having me today.
You're up again. Star of the show.
Oh dear. I just got a few pages to read, so I hope you'll bear with me. Firstly, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to be here today to say a few words. I'm here representing the 460 Squadron and the relatives of that squadron. The squadron was formed on the 15th of November in 1941 and carried out its first operations on the 12th of March in 1942. And the last flights of the squadron were in September 1945 to Italy to repat British troops. And I looked at my father's logbook today to find out, why didn't he participate in Operation Manna? And I found out that at the end of March, he had done his 35 operations, and that was the limit. So he wasn't involved in, this was really wartime, still was wartime. And so he wasn't able to be involved in that. But sometime later in September, he flew to Italy and repatriated some British troops back to the UK. And I was just mentioning to a few people today, imagine having 20 soldiers in that aircraft flying back to Britain. It wouldn't have been particularly first class, would it? And but I'm sure they were very grateful. I might also say on that there were very strict rules about who could go on a Lancaster, and it really was only the 7 crew. But occasionally, and I'm not sure whether your dad, Kathleen, did this, but occasionally one of the ground crew would sneak on board. And I remember Dad saying that at one stage he had a tap on the shoulder, and there was one of the ground crew. They really wanted to know what it was like. And of course, they did all the hard work getting the aircraft up to speed so that it was safe to fly. The squadron was disbanded at the end of the war, but in 2010 it was reformed, and it's now a squadron in the Air Force. but it's an intelligent unit active within the Australian Geospatial Organisation, so it's not a flying squadron anymore. But the squadron did achieve many milestones in military history. It sent more Lancaster bombers on operations, dropped a greater tonnage of bombs than any other squadron in the Bomber Command, and the milestones were of great cost because of the 3,500 Australians who died in Bomber Command, 589 of them were members of the squadron. But another interesting statistic is that the squadron received the most decorations of any squadron in Bomber Command. So this month marks a very significant event in the squadron and the operation of Manna. The squadron took part in 7 drops, delivering 340 tonnes of food to the starving population of the Netherlands. And I've been able to identify 2 pilots who participated in Operation Manna, Frederick Coward, and we've got one of his sons here today, and another fellow called Doug Preeper, and I've made contact with his daughters. Yesterday I had the good fortune to meet a gentleman who, as a 5-year-old, witnessed the Operation Manna and the food drops. And he said, as a 5-year-old, he saw these aircraft flying very close to the ground, as Dave mentioned. And he was just so excited because it meant that he was going to get some food finally. But it's just wonderful to actually meet someone at that had that experience. I would like to acknowledge the Pure Amateur Radio Group, the WA Repeater Group, Dave, Robert and Dennis's group, the WA VHF, as well as the many other radio amateurs in Australia and at the 11 or so sites in the Northern Hemisphere who've banded together to commemorate Operation Manna and Operation Cowhound. I know Dennis and Robert have worked tirelessly to make this event happen, and I'm sure Dave has been very much involved as well in cooperation with the Aviation Heritage Museum. 3 years ago, this team commemorated the Lancasters' first sorties in 1943, and my father, who was a pilot, attended that function. Just on another thing that I should mention, my son and his family holidaying from Melbourne last week visited the museum, and they were just so impressed with the displays and the knowledgeable volunteers they met. It is a significant reminder of the importance of preserving Australia's military history. And I've said here, I'm very excited to be here this afternoon to witness this commemoration and hopefully have an exchange. Well, I've already had an exchange with the people at Binbrook, but I do sincerely thank you for allowing me to talk to my friends at the Binbrook RAAF base. Thank you.
Okay, that I think closes the formal proceedings, if I'm not mistaken. So, I'm sorry, Peter. Did you want to say a few words? No. All right. All very good. Thank you again for coming along, and we will try and make another contact with Binbrook in a little while. But we're also here for another couple of hours, I presume, trying to make more contacts in general around the world. So once again, thank you for coming.
Can you just tell us who have you contacted so far?
We've made contacts with the group in the Netherlands at The Hague, the 2 different groups in the UK at 2 different areas of Bomber Command, and several local Australian amateurs. But we've also had a very good. 2 in Canada. I'm 2 in Canada as well. Yeah. We've also had a lot of luck from one of the guys in South Australia who is basically operating solo. So we've got 4 or 5 or 6 people here. He's on his own and made several hundred contacts over the Anzac weekend, right across the globe. So for direct, the radio system we're using here is a little bit sneaky because the longest part of the journey goes over the internet. But our operator in South Australia was using literally radio waves around the planet, and that is very dependent on the atmosphere and the ionosphere as to whether you get this far or that far. So you have to be up at all hours of the night to get good fishing. Yep. Yep. So yes, if anybody has any questions, there's plenty of smart people around here other than me to answer them.
I've got one question.
Yes, Robert.
Can we have a group photograph?
In front of the Lancaster, that would be a lovely idea.
Please and thank you.
We'll do that now.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
You're free to.
Yes. Before Robert falls asleep.
I do.
And I thank you for all coming to.
Yes.